Okay, today we're going to look at how a single river didn't just support a civilization, it literally created one. We're talking about the Nile River and how it was absolutely crucial in shaping ancient Egypt. I mean, it provided everything: food, transportation, even the very materials they used to build their world.
I mean, it's a question that almost sounds impossible when you really think about it. You've got this vast, endless desert, and right in the middle of it, one of history's greatest civilizations pops up. How did this incredible society not only survive, but thrive for thousands of years?
Well, the answer to that huge historical puzzle, it's actually pretty simple, but so powerful. It was the river, the Nile.
All right, so let's really dive into this. The Nile, it wasn't just some body of water. You got to think of it as the main artery of ancient Egypt. It was the absolute lifeline that made everything, and I mean everything, possible.
And wow, what a lifeline it was. We're talking about the longest river in the world. It stretches over 4,100 miles. To put that in perspective, it flows all the way north from the heart of Africa, up through countries we now call Sudan and Ethiopia, before it finally reaches Egypt and spills into the Mediterranean Sea. Just incredible.
Okay, so this is one of those things that can be kind of confusing when you first look at a map. Get this. Upper Egypt is actually in the south, and Lower Egypt is in the north. So why the heck is it backwards? Well, it's all about the river. The names just follow the Nile's flow, which goes from upstream in the south to downstream in the north.
And this is where the magic really happens. Because of all the incredible things the Nile provided, the most important one, without a doubt, was fertile land. Just imagine it, in the middle of a bone-dry desert, having rich soil to grow things. That wasn't just a gift, it was a miracle.
And you know, that amazing soil became the foundation for their whole society. 3 crops in particular were just super important. You had wheat, flax, and the incredibly versatile papyrus.
So wheat was the big one. It was king. I mean, it was the main ingredient for bread, which was the food for pretty much everyone. But here's the kicker. It was also like money. The Egyptians grew so much wheat that they were able to sell it all over the Middle East. And that helped make them incredibly wealthy.
Then you've got papyrus. Now, this was a plant that just grew everywhere along the riverbanks. And you've probably heard of it, right? As the stuff they used to make ancient paper. But for the Egyptians, oh, it was so much more than that.
I mean, just look at how resourceful they were. From this one single plant, they made paper, of course, for all their records and stories, but they also made everyday stuff, things like baskets, super strong rope, and even sandals. And the way they made the paper was genius. They'd slice the inside of the plant into these thin little strips, lay them out in a grid pattern, press them together, and then just let the sun bake them into a tough, durable sheet. Amazing.
But it wasn't just about what they could grow. The Nile was also like a giant hardware store, providing all the raw materials. It literally gave the Egyptians the building blocks they needed to create their empire.
And they were absolute masters at using what was right there in front of them. You see the mud along the riverbanks, perfect for making sun-dried bricks. That's what they used for homes, walls, all sorts of buildings. And for the big stuff, the really grand projects, they just went to the hills right next to the Nile and quarried massive amounts of limestone and sandstone.
So the river didn't just give them the stuff to build a civilization, it also connected it all together. You can really think of the Nile as the ancient world's first superhighway.
It makes perfect sense when you think about it. Pretty much every major city was built right on the river's edge. So you had boats constantly going up and down the Nile. It was the fastest, easiest way to move people, to trade goods, and even to transport soldiers. It's what tied the whole empire together.
Okay, this is where you really start to see how deep the Nile's influence went. It didn't just shape their geography, it shaped their concept of time. The Egyptians literally built their entire calendar around the river's yearly cycle.
So forget summer, fall, winter, and spring. Their year had 3 seasons, and they were all about the Nile. First up was Aket. That was the flood season. Then came Peret, the growing season, which happened right after the floodwaters went down and left all that rich soil behind. And finally, you had Shegu, which was, you guessed it, the harvest season.
All right, how about a quick round of some fascinating facts? These really show just how deep the Nile was woven into the culture, and even the beliefs of ancient Egypt.
You've probably heard this famous nickname. The ancient Greeks actually called Egypt the gift of the Nile. And that name came directly from that rich, black soil the flood left behind every single year. That precious silt was like a reset button for their farmlands. In fact, that soil was so important to who they were that one of the ancient Egyptian names for the Nile was Ar.
and R literally means black, a direct shout-out to that life-giving dirt.
They even invented this incredible tool called a nilometer. It was basically a staircase or a big pillar with markings on it, and they used it to measure exactly how high the flood was each year. But this wasn't just about farming. No. This was about power. See, if you could predict how good the harvest was going to be, you could set the tax levels ahead of time. It was a genius way for the pharaoh to control the economy and, prove he had a divine connection.
And of course, they had a beautiful, mythic explanation for all this. To the Egyptians, the flood wasn't just a random natural event. They believed it was caused by the tears of the goddess Isis, crying for her lost husband, Osiris.
So when you pull all these pieces together, the main point becomes crystal clear. The Nile wasn't just a river that happened to run through Egypt. It was everything. It was their calendar, their highway, their farm, their quarry. It was the very foundation of their religion and their entire society.
So, yeah, the river was this massive, powerful force that shaped almost every single part of life in ancient Egypt. And it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are the unseen rivers in our world today? The technologies, the economic systems, the ideas that are quietly shaping everything about our civilization right now. It's definitely something to think about.